Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let us continue with our tafsir of Surah An-Nisaa bihawlillahi wa quwwatih. We are on ayah number 37. قال الله تبارك وتعالى الذين يبخلون ويأمرون الناس بالبخل ويكتمون ما آتاهم الله من فضله وأعتدنا للكافرين عذابا مهينا. He begins by saying الذين, those who. So whom is he referring to? Remember in the previous ayah he said that Allah does not love the مختالا فخورا, the prideful, boastful person. Then he goes on giving the description of the types of people that Allah does not love. Those who يبخلون, from بخل يبخل, bukhlan, to be stingy. So stingy is when you withhold and keep for yourself that which you should be giving away or spending. Now what is this referring to? The immediate meaning which comes to mind are people who are stingy with their wealth and do not give in charity and in noble causes. And certainly this is one tafsir. There is another tafsir which says that this refers to knowledge, with the Yahud withholding the knowledge and the description of the last prophet in the Torah. So they're being stingy in that sense. And this is an acceptable tafsir because the ayah goes on to say وَيَكْتُمُونَ مَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. And they yaktumun, we have met this word before, they conceal what Allah has given them from His grace. From His grace then would mean the knowledge that Allah has granted the Yahud. So they conceal this knowledge. And the tafsir is viable both ways. You can say wealth or you can say wahi or revelation. Ultimately, the Yahud are stingy with regards to both of them. The ayah also says, وَيَأْمُرُونَ النَّاسَ بِالْبُخْلِ, they order people to be stingy. So this could mean then that they order other people not to give in charity and in righteous causes. And it can also then mean that they order other people to conceal the knowledge that they have, meaning their fellow Yahud. And he says, we have أَعْتَدْنَا, prepared for the kafirin, عَذَابًا مُهِينًا, muhin meaning humiliating. And that word has, of course, preceded. So reflecting on this ayah, we take the negative and rebukable quality of stinginess. Now stinginess has levels. For example, if a guest comes to your place, then letting him stay for one day and night is obligatory. So if you do not let him do that, then this type of stinginess is a worse type of stinginess because you're being stinginess about that which is wajib. Whereas 3 days and nights for the guest is recommended. So if you do not do that, then you're being stingy with that which is recommended, which is less egregious. We also take that Allah Jalla wa Ala does not love those types of people who order others to be stingy as well. And that is of course yet worse, because if you order others to be stingy and they obey your rule, then the sin of their stinginess falls on them obviously, but also on you, because they are following your command and your sunnah. And we can then flip the coin over and say that Allah Jalla wa Ala does love those who are generous and those who order others to be generous. We also realize that any of the ni'mah, the grace and the blessings that you have is from Allah Jalla wa Ala, because He says مَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ, what Allah has given them from His grace. So all your ni'mah and grace are from Allah Jalla wa Ala. We also find the existence of a humiliating torment. Here he is talking about the fire of Jahannam, which will be humiliating as well as painful obviously. And we find that this fire and the humiliating torment is prepared for the kafirin, those who reject the message of Islam. And also because he ends by saying kafirin, we find that these rebukable and contemptible qualities of stinginess and also before that pridefulness and boastfulness are qualities of the kuffar. They are not qualities of the proper Muslim. Ayah 38. وَالَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُمْ رِئَاءَ النَّاسِ وَلَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَلَا بِالْيَوْمِ الآخر ومن يكن الشيطان له قرينا فساء قرينا. He says وَالَّذِينَ. So again, this means to say that Allah does not love these following types of people: those who ينفقون, who spend, أموالهم, plural of mal, their wealth. But why do they spend it? رِيَاءَ النَّاسِ. So riya'a could be the hal of those who spend it. This is why it is mansub al-fatha. Or you could also say it is maf'ul li ajlihi, meaning the reason why they are spending is riya', which means showing off. From ra'a, yara, which means to see. So they want others to see them. And the verb ra'a, yura'i, riya'an or mura'atan means to show off. An-Nas meaning people. وَلَا يُؤْمِنُونَ, and they do not have iman. Iman is a key term, has preceded. Billahi, they don't have iman in Allah. وَلَا بِالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ, nor in the last day, that is the day of resurrection. It's called the last day because there is no other day after that day, because there's no sunrise and sunset such that we could have a day-night cycle after that day of resurrection. And he says, وَمَنْ يَكُنِ الشَّيْطَانِ, whomsoever shaitan is a qareen. Qareen meaning a companion, because qarana yaqrinu means to join something onto something else. So a qareen is someone who is joined to you or your companion. فَسَاءَ qarina, we have talked about sa'a meaning a bad thing. It is a fi'l jamid if it is intended to mean it was bad. So a bad qareen, a bad companion. So reflecting on this ayah, fairly obviously we take the rebukable quality of showing off when you are performing a righteous action or an act of ibadah, because it simply then means you're not doing it for Allah Jalla wa Ala, you're doing it for other people, which means you have no ikhlas, sincerity to Allah, and Allah Jalla wa Ala does not accept deeds which are done without sincerity. And we can also take that those people who are stingy with their wealth, they are more likely to give their wealth for showing off purposes, and this is one of the evil effects of being stingy in the first place. However, we do need to point out at this juncture that performing righteous actions and acts of ibadah with the intention of people looking at you does not always have to be haram. Sometimes you may do it to teach others, and sometimes you may do it so others can be motivated and take your example, because you just need to knock one domino for the others to fall. So you want to be that first person to do that righteous action in front of others so that others can follow your lead. And this could be the case in giving charity. If no one is giving charity and you openly give charity so that others can look and learn, and as we know, actions speak louder than words. So if this is your intention, then that is absolutely fine. Because even though you're doing this so that others may see you, you're not doing it so others may praise you. Rather, you're doing it for Allah Jalla wa Ala. And you're doing it with the intention of encouraging others to obey Allah Jalla wa Ala. And that therefore is a praiseworthy intention, not a rebuke-worthy one. We also notice how he says that they show off in front of other people and they do not have iman in Allah and the last day. And that makes sense because showing off has no sincerity, and iman in Allah and the last day is all about sincerity to Allah Jalla wa Ala. So the more showing off you have, the less iman you have, like a seesaw. More of one, the less of the other. And it ought to be noted as well that a little bit of showing off is shirk asghar, a minor type of shirk. But if a person does all his deeds showing off, then this has to be major kufr, which throws you out of the fold of Islam, because then you have zero sincerity to Allah Jalla wa Ala. And it cannot be envisaged that a person with zero sincerity is in fact a Muslim. We also take the rebukable quality of not having iman in Allah and the last day. Even the mushrikun used to have iman in Allah, as in His rububiyyah, but they had no iman in the last day. So believing that Allah exists will do you no good. You have to have iman in His rububiyyah, uluhiyyah, asma wa sifat, and the last day as well. We also take that the one who has shaitan as his companion, then what an evil companion this is. However, we also know that everybody has a personal shaitan with him or her, ordering them to do evil. Even the Prophet had a personal shaitan, but this shaitan embraced Islam and only ordered the Prophet to do good. But that is specific to the Prophet. It does not apply to us. But what the ayah is referring to is that if we take this shaitan as our companion and listen to him and obey his whispers, where he whispers in our hearts, this is when we have taken shaitan as our companion. Otherwise, we cannot stop the wasawis, the whispers, and we cannot stop the shaitan from trying to misguide us. But we do have control as to whether we let the shaitan misguide us. And we do have control as to whether we put our guard up against him or not. And ayah number 39, وَمَاذَا عَلَيْهِمْ لَوْ آمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَأَنْفَقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقَهُمْ اللَّهُ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ بِهِمْ عَلِيمًا. He says, وَمَاذَا عَلَيْهِمْ, what loss would they have suffered? لَوْ آمَنُوا, had they believed in Allah and the last day, وَأَنْفَقُوا, and spent, مِمَّا, from what, رَزَقَهُمُ اللَّهُ, the rizq that Allah provided them, and Allah was all knowledgeable, bihim, about them. So reflecting on this ayah, we take that Allah is rebuking these types of people by asking a question. So this is a question of rebuke, not a question of inquiry. Obviously, Allah Jalla wa Ala does not ask questions of inquiry, because that will completely oppose His all-knowing nature. We may also take a general lesson that a person, when he wants to undertake a particular project or an action or whatever, he should weigh the pros and cons. Because here the ayah is saying that they would have no loss if they believed in Allah and spent in righteous causes. There is only benefit to be gained. And we also take from the ayah the obligation of Iman in Allah and the last day and spending your wealth in righteous causes. We also learn that the wealth that you have is a rizq, a provision from Allah Jalla wa Ala. So it only therefore makes sense that you should spend it in ways which would please Him, as that is the only way to bless your wealth. Imagine if you gave somebody some money and they used this very money to do that which angers you. Immediately you would think that this makes no rational sense. Also, when we realize that the rizq is from Allah Jalla wa Ala, then what follows from it, a corollary, is that we need to rely upon Allah Jalla wa Ala for our rizq. Now that may sound easy enough, but this includes things like foregoing haram avenues of wealth, even if these haram avenues may earn you millions and millions of pounds. Forego and forfeit the haram avenues of wealth and rely upon Allah Jalla wa Ala. That for many people is a tough choice to make, because the haram avenue is just so tempting. But you need to ensure that your reliance upon Allah trumps your temptation for haram earning. So we say reliance upon Allah before everything else. We also take the name of Allah Alim, and he ends the ayah by saying Alim because this is a threat and a glad tiding. A threat to those who do evil and a glad tiding to those who do good, that your righteous actions will not go unnoticed, just like your evil actions will not go unnoticed, because Allah knows all things about you. هذا والله أعلم.